got the cornfield calm, Midwest tone, but he's spitting facts like a dog with a bone. Lanky frame, fire-haired, eyes on the case, breaking down the game in the darkest place. Sports scores to murder boards, Hoosier logic cuts like swords. From Friday lights to chalked out lines, this redhead's brain rewrites the lines inside the Hoosier mind, where the stories twist and stats unwind. He's a legend in flannel, mic in hand, digging deep where few can stand. From touchdowns to crime scenes raw, he's got the truth in every draw. Yeah, step in if you dare to find what's brewing inside the Hoosier mind. He'll talk Pacers, Colts, or Colts on trial. Hoosier humor with a devilish smile. He's that redhead sleuth with a box of clues, takes your headline, breaks the news. With every stat and every scream, he's painting portraits in your stream. Don't blink, he'll tie it tight, from game night wins to murder fight. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the facts hit hard and the lines are blind. He's a ginger ninja, smooth and slick, cracking cases play by play quick. From courtrooms to the hardwood floor, he digs for more than just the score. Tune in and don't rewind, you're deep now inside the Hoosier mind.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome into Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice, as well as Gunfighter Beard Company. If you want a great beard, potentially like mine, if you think my beard is great, definitely check out his stuff. He's a Marine Corps veteran out of South Carolina. All of his stuff is handmade here in the USA. It's shipped and made out of South Carolina. A lot of really great scents. They smell wonderful. He's got like banana Laffy Taffy, watermelon Jolly Rancher. He's got one that's like smoked lavender, smells really, really good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But we are here to talk about the draft because the draft is in just 2 days. And for the most part, we already know more than likely who's going to go number 1 overall, unless the Raiders just decide to do the absolute biggest fumble of all time and not draft their potential franchise future quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. But I don't think that's going to happen, especially with how their offseason has gone as far as who they've signed, who they've gone after. And Tom Brady is running the show there. He's put a lot of investment into the Raiders, and I highly, highly doubt that they're going to do anything crazy without Tom's approval. But nonetheless, though, that is kind of the fun part. And so this is going to be a little bit of a short episode. Unfortunately, Mike, the Shy Kid, is not able to join me tonight. We are actually going to do an episode. It's going to be a special Thursday episode where we're going to show Mike's picks, who he has getting drafted where and when. But I'm going to do mine tonight. And I'm going to be honest, this might upset a few people because of some of my picks. And I'm going to be honest. And if anybody agrees with me, you can let me know. If you disagree with me, let me know. I feel like this is one of those drafts that after the number 1 overall pick is an absolute free-for-all on who can go where. And I've heard some people say this is a really weak draft class. I honestly feel that's the opposite. I feel that this is a really strong draft class in just about every single position except for quarterback. Quarterback, this is a really, really weak class. Now, it might be one of those we end up getting proven wrong, but you have the likes of Fernando Mendoza coming out. You have Carson Beck. You have Drew Aller. You have Garrett Nussmeier. You have, I think his name's Taylon Green out of Arkansas coming out. You have Ty Simpson out of Alabama. You have Sawyer out of Baylor coming out. So you have a lot of big names that did well in college coming out. Now, does that immediately correlate to the NFL? Time will tell and we'll see. We didn't really see a whole lot of guys aside from Cam Ward that came out of the draft last year and up playing. I know Quinn Ewers ended up filling in basically there at the end in Miami, but it wasn't really anything special or anything crazy. And of course, we saw Dylan Gabriel. We had Shador Sanders up in Cleveland. But nonetheless, though, I wanted to go over my picks, who I have there, and why. It's also going to address some of the overall, needs that these teams have and why I pick some of these players. And then I'm going to go over some of the players that will still be available. In all honesty, again, this is one of those times where with the top 10 pick, unless we see somebody just do an absolute reach, which I feel isn't going to be as prevalent as it used to. And what I mean by that is I don't feel that we're going to see a Zach Wilson issue again of, man, we really think that this is going to be the guy that just really gets it done for us. Like we can't miss. There's no way we can miss. I don't think that's going to happen. It still could, and I think there's still going to be those GMs and those owners out there that think, oh, hey, I'm going to be the secret genius. There's something there with this kid that we think can work. But for the most part, I think with how some of these guys are going to be evaluating, how a lot of the media evaluates, how a lot of their fans are going to evaluate them, that there's going to be a lot of safe picks. And if anything, if I'm a GM, if I'm an owner, I can come back and say, look, this is what y'all wanted. This is what everybody said to do. I did it and just didn't pan out. And that's completely possible with anything. But without further ado, let's get into my top 10 picks of who I have going in the top 10. And like I said, we'll break each one down, kind of defending it. So let's start with number 1 overall pick. Obviously, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders absolutely need a franchise quarterback. Now, I know a lot of people have been hit or miss on Fernando. If you're here in Indiana, everybody has pretty much loved Fernando because of what he's done for the Hoosiers on probably the greatest season in Hoosier history, took them to the promised land somewhere that they had never been before in football, and did absolute wonders for them. So this is the only pick that I'm like, this is for sure going to happen, is Fernando Mendoza. Now, 2 through 10 is honestly an absolute free for all. I feel any one of these picks could realistically happen. And I also feel that none of these picks could realistically happen, at least in the order that they're in. So the Raiders obviously need their franchise quarterback. I think Fernando is going to absolutely be that guy. Now, the big thing they still need a little bit of help on the offensive line, and they need weapons for him to throw to. They have Brock Bowers, they have Mayer at tight end, they have Ashton Genty at the running back, which is great. They're all young. They're still on rookie contracts. They don't have to pay them a lot of money. So that's why they're able to invest a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. Luckily, this is a wide receiver deep draft, so I could definitely see them maybe using some of their other picks to get wide receivers. But overall, I mean, this is going to be a home run hit for them, barring any type of injury. Just the way that Fernando conducts himself, the way that he studies the game. And again, he's going to have Tom Brady there. And Tom Brady's going to have some type of hand and tutelage in teaching Fernando how to be a franchise quarterback and giving him just any type of advice that he can. So I have the Raiders pretty solidly taking Fernando at number 1. Now, number 2, the Jets. The Jets could go so many different ways with this. Fun fact, again, for anybody who wants to potentially see Mike's episode with me on Thursday, and for anybody who wants to see Mike's list early, you can check that out on my Instagram at Inside the Hoosier Mind. It's also on my TikTok at Inside the Hoosier Mind as well. Mike has the Jets actually trading the number 2 overall pick to the Giants, which is kind of crazy. But the Jets have really been stockpiling picks. They've been doing basically like a fire sale. They've been getting rid of a lot of their picks to just stockpile for the future. And if they do it right, the Jets could potentially make a lot of home run hits, but we'll see. I have the Jets keeping the number 2 overall pick, and I have them picking Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. They desperately need a linebacker. They also need a wide receiver, and they need an edge rusher. So realistically, to me, they could go one of 2 ways. They could go for Arvell at linebacker. They could go for David Bailey out of Texas Tech. They could go for Reuben Bain out of Miami. They could even go for Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. They could maybe even go for Sonny Styles. The comp for Arvell, from everything that I've heard and everything that I've seen as far as his film and how he plays, has been compared to Micah Parsons. Now, that's kind of a big stretch, and I know for some people that may or may not be considered a good thing. Mike is a very dynamic player. He attracts a lot of attention. He has a lot of stats to back him, back his production up and back a lot of the, hype that comes with him. But I think Arvell might be a little bit more well-rounded. He really fit into Matt Patricia's defense well, and he's already got that experience coming in of having an NFL defensive coordinator already beginning to coach him in college for at least the last season. So I think the Jets go with him. They need that linebacker. They need that pass rusher. And their defense has taken a big hit. They've lost a lot of guys to retirement. They traded a lot of guys again just to get a lot of draft capital. So I think Arvell is the safe pick here. Now, number 3 with Arizona. And this is the one that I feel could cause the most chaos. And mostly because you could really make this argument for literally every single player at every single position at every part of the draft, because you'll always have teams contacting players, talking to them, interviewing them, bringing them in for workouts, all these different things, all the way up until the draft itself actually happens. With Arizona, there's a lot of talks that they could potentially be in the market for Jeremiah Love at running back, mainly because aside from Jacoby Brissett, who there's rumors that he's going to potentially want to ask for more money as far as being a starting quarterback. I feel like he has kind of earned that with him, even if it's just a 1-year deal kind of thing, that they're going to need something to rely on. If Jacoby gets hurt or if they don't have that quarterback for the future, they're going to need to rely on somebody. Now, I could see where Jeremiah Love immediately fits into that. He's a dynamic running back. No matter who you have at quarterback, you can just hand it off, try to chew up the timing and whatnot. I have them drafting Francis Mauigoa. I think it's Mauigoa. Hopefully I enunciated it right. If I didn't, I apologize. It's really hard to enunciate and pronounce just looking at it. Solid tackle out of Miami. They need to shore up their offensive line. That's their second biggest need, according to one of the draft simulators. They need a quarterback. They need a tackle. They need an edge. Now, maybe they kind of surprise everybody. They go with David Bailey here to just kind of help shore up that defense, especially now with Calais Campbell retiring and not coming back. They're going to need that extra bite there on the edge in Arizona. But to me, because it's such an offensive-driven league, you're going to need to help, whoever your future quarterback is. They already drafted to tackle out of Ohio State not too long ago. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver. You're going to need a lot of offensive pieces, and especially if you want to make yourself a potentially attractive destination for free agent quarterbacks, you're going to need to shore up that offensive line. I think Francis out of Miami is a really good pick for that. Now, the betting favorite to get Jeremiah Love is Tennessee. This one to me makes a little bit more sense, mainly because, again, Cam Ward needs a lot of help. There's not a lot of weapons down there in Tennessee. He doesn't really have a number 1 wide receiver unless you include Calvin Ridley. But he just hasn't really been available, whether it's been injuries, whether it's been off the field issues. He has not been there for them. And it's hard for them to rely on. I think for Tennessee, if you get Jeremiah Love, you get a dynamic running back. He's a good pass catcher. He can block. He can run. I think that gives them something to really, rely on. He can be the bell cow. He can help grow with Cam Ward, and it can make Tennessee a little bit more dynamic, and it can cover up for a lot of things. If you can have a good run game, if you can really make this work, it can be significantly better, and it can be a better overall year and a better time for both your quarterback and your running back as they come up in a young league if you get Jeremiah Love. Now, again, it could completely go a million different ways. Tennessee needs a lot of help in a lot of different areas. They need an edge rusher. So, again, David Bailey might potentially be in there. Or maybe Tennessee kind of shocks everybody. Maybe they are the ones that take the first wide receiver off the board. Maybe they go after Carnell Tate. Maybe they go after Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon. Maybe they go after one of those guys to pair with Cam Ward to give him, again, a young weapon, a young guy he can really build chemistry with, a guy that he can really work with. So to me, that's where I see Tennessee going, at least as Jeremiah Love at running back. Now, again, kind of the beauty about this, they could potentially change everything. I think they go with Jeremiah Love. I feel like it's a safer bet and it's easier to deal with. Now, a lot of people might argue you can do running back by committee. Why would you spend the 4th overall pick on a running back? You can make pretty much any argument on any of these picks for that. But he is a very talented player, and he did great for Notre Dame. He did great in college. Now, one of the things people did bring up, He really struggled in the national championship against Ohio State. So does that transfer into the NFL? Maybe, but we'll see. And now the Giants have the 5th pick, right? Now the Giants kind of the same way. I feel like they're another team that with where they're at, with who would still technically be left on the board if all of this is true, hypothetically, they could really go after anybody. They just traded off Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals, which is a pretty significant trade and a pretty significant move. But I feel like they could either go linebacker on defense, which they do kind of need in order to make up for Dexter Lawrence being gone, or they could go wide receiver to give Jackson Dart yet another weapon, and especially to go on the other side of Malik Neighbors. So to me, the Giants could either go Carnell Tate or they could go Sonny Styles. I have them picking Sonny Styles. Just again, they're good on defense. They have a lot of guys that are coming up into contract year, though. I believe Kayvon Thibodeau is coming up into a contract year. They just traded off Dexter Lawrence. So they still have Abdul Carter, who did pretty well for them last year. So they have really good pieces on their defense. The linebacking core is where it's a little bit weak. And that's where, for me, they let a lot of their guys go. So they need to fix their linebacking room. To me, Sonny Styles kind of fits. He fixes that immediately. He gives them a really good young linebacker who can, rush the passer. He can drop off into coverage, gives them a lot to work with and a lot of versatility. And again, it's a deep draft as far as wide receiver goes. You don't have to get a guy at 5 to still get a quality starting guy. And who knows, there may still be a lot of potential in Jalen Hyatt. Maybe this is his year where he really breaks out. We've kind of seen that with a lot of instability with offensive coordinators. It doesn't always click for guys. And then for whatever reason, entering another year, and now that he has the stability of Harbaugh as his coach, maybe that also does something to maybe change how he approaches things, how he handles things. So I think the Giants go defense with this pick. Now, Cleveland. To me, Cleveland is the other wild card in this because they need a lot, and there's a plethora that they could go with. They need a tackle. Now, I know Monroe Freeling is not the top tackle on a lot of people's boards that are still left. There's still Spencer Fano out of Utah. He's considered one of the other top tackles, along with Francis Mauigoa. You've also got the inside lineman from Penn State. I'm not even going to try to enunciate his name. I actually had him going to the Bengals. When I was originally doing my picks and looking at it, I was like, I don't even know if I can enunciate that. And I'm not even going to try because I'm going to absolutely butcher it if I do. And then you have Caleb Lamu, the other tackle out of Utah, potentially there. And you even have Caden Proctor. Like, there's a lot of deep offensive talent and offensive linemen that you could potentially go out there. You even have Blake Miller out of Clemson. Now, Blake Miller, not as high on the draft board for a lot of people. They don't consider, I think realistically, he is a top 10 pick had this draft not been so deep as so many of the other positions. I think he would definitely be up there. And again, you could even make the argument between him and Monroe Freeling. Monroe Freeling has really shot up on a lot of draft boards recently. So I wouldn't be surprised. And again, Spencer Fano might be another one that potentially goes there. So nonetheless, I think Cleveland goes offensive line. They've lost a lot of that. And again, for them too, if you want to potentially build for whoever your franchise quarterback is going to be in the future, you need to go offensive line. To me, Cleveland goes for the kid out of Georgia. I think he's been absolutely solid. He's an all SEC. He has a really high upside. Now, he only started 13 games, which was last year. So there's not a lot of experience. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's something he can still work with. It's something that can still be taught. It's not the end of the world if he does it that way. Now, Washington. Now, I know for a lot of people, they're probably going to hate this pick because why would they take Mekhi Lemon over Carnell Tate? Now, there's a couple different theories I've heard on this, and I'm going to explain why. Mekhi Lemon, super solid. He really was USC's number one wide receiver for the last few years. He has that number one experience. The thing with Carnell, he was not. And that's the crazy part. A lot of people consider Carnell Tate one of the best wide receivers in the draft for this year so far. He was not the number one wide receiver on Ohio State at any point. Because you have to think about it. He was in a wide receiver room with Marvin Harrison Jr. He was in a wide receiver room, I believe, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, with Emeka Ibuka, with Jeremiah Smith this past season. And that's what a lot of people have pointed out. Did he get the production and the numbers because he had Jeremiah Smith on the other side? Is he a true number one, or is he just one of those? He's really good. He might be like a 1B, but he's never been in that role of having to be a number one receiver. How does he do that with this team? Now, to me, 7 and 8 are really interchangeable because Washington does need a wide receiver. They do need an edge rusher, so maybe they go David Bailey out of Texas Tech here. I feel like it could go either one. If I'm Washington, you just let Debo go. And Terry McLaurin, he was injured last year after you finally paid him his contract that he's owed. Really good. But you have a franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He needs weapons, and he needs weapons to throw to. You got rid of Dotson. Debo's not there anymore. You basically had him for a 1-year rental, and Terry's hurt. You need another dependable guy to throw to, and you need that from Mekhi Lemon. Now, there is a little bit of question mark as far as Lemon's injury history. He hasn't always been healthy for an entire season, but there's a lot of upside. And again, if you can alternate, if you can figure out packages of him and Terry maybe on the field at the same time, split the reps, whatever you have to do to keep him healthy and keep him available, I think there's a lot of upside. And again, he can have another wide receiver that's already number one, that's going to get a lot of the double teams. And even then, if he doesn't, Scary Terry does or Mekhi does, and it opens one of them up because you can't defend everybody. You can only defend so many people at the same time. So to me, I think Washington takes Mekhi Lemon. Now for New Orleans also needs a lot of help. They have absolute draft capital hell in pretty much everything, and they need a lot. They also need an edge rusher, especially with Cam Jordan being gone. Now, this one is where I feel like, again, I've mentioned David Bailey just about everywhere because there's a lot of teams that need edge rushers. New Orleans especially needs an edge rusher now that Cam Jordan is gone. Maybe he ends up making a reunion a little bit later on in the season. As far as I know, there's a lot of reports Cam Jordan has not received a lot of interest from teams. I haven't even heard of him going to work out with anybody at the current moment, at least here on a Tuesday evening at 6:22 p.m. Eastern time. So they could potentially get David Bailey out of Texas Tech. And if Carnell Tate is still there at 8, why not give Tyler Shuck another weapon? You have Chris Olave. He has been absolutely beat up. They use and abuse him a lot down there in New Orleans because he's an absolute superstar. Why not pair him with another Ohio State guy, pair a guy that's going to be able to, maneuver well, and Chris Olave can really act like a mentor to him because, hey, both come from Ohio State. We both had Ryan Day as head coaches. We both had Ryan Hartline as a wide receivers coach. This absolutely perfect. Like, to me, this might be one of the best fits as far as having somebody that's been in a system that you've been in, help you with the terminology, and the same thing, help get guys, hey, I'm Chris Olave. You're probably going to get double team. Carnell Tate, now you're open. And it gives Carnell Tate the opportunity to then learn how to be an NFL wide receiver. Now, maybe it's one of those, he ends up becoming a 1. We've seen a few situations. Look at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in Philly. Realistically, Devontae Smith is a number 1 wide receiver. But with A.J. Brown, it's 1A and it's 1B. Whoever you want to dictate at whichever spot, you're more than welcome to. I feel like for Carnell, if he does that with New Orleans or Washington, or honestly, even with New York, because Malik Neighbors is considered the 1. And even with the Jets, if they decide to take him, you have Garrett Wilson. Pretty much everywhere but Tennessee and Cleveland, he would probably be viewed as like the number 2 guy, which is not a bad thing. He can really grow. And I wouldn't even consider him a 2. I consider him 1B, but I think this would be a perfect fit for him. And then you got Kansas City. Now, Kansas City, there's a lot of people that they want Kansas City to go get a wide receiver. I heard a lot of arguments that Patrick Mahomes needs a legitimate number 1. He needs that guy to really he throws it up there and somebody's there to catch it. You're not wrong. And if If they hadn't won a Super Bowl without that, without a number one wide receiver, I had they not won him, I would probably agree with you. But they still won Super Bowls even without Tyreek Hill, which I would argue that Tyreek Hill was their number one wide receiver for a good minute there. And again, you could also make the argument that Travis Kelsey was too. So they don't really need it on offense. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they're going to figure it out and they're going to make it work with guys. Now I know their wide receiver room is an absolute mess as far as whether guys are going to be available, whether they're going to be there or not. So I don't think that's it. They need help on the defensive side of the ball, and they especially need it in defensive backs. They just traded Trent McDuffie to the Rams not too long ago. So to me, and I see Joy in the comments. Joy, appreciate you being here. I say they go after my guy at LSU, Mansour Delane, one of the best quarterbacks or best defensive backs all year last year. And for a lot of people, they might argue, well, statistically, he didn't have a good year. They didn't throw to him. Like if you watch a lot of LSU games, they hardly threw toward his way at all because he had whoever he was covering absolutely locked down just about the entire season. He was one of the best bright spots that LSU had. He's one of the many Tigers that's going to get drafted this year. Between him, between Harold Perkins, more than likely Garrett Nussmeier is going to get drafted as well. There's a lot of really good talent from the LSU team, and Mansour Delane is pretty much that crown jewel of it, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and Kansas City needs that. I feel like this would be absolutely perfect for him. It'd be a great spot. He's mature. He knows how to play the ball well. He knows how to play defense well, and especially under Steve Spagnuolo on the defensive coordinator side, this would be an absolute home run hit to me. I think they go after Mansour Delane, and again, why not? You know, he's an LSU Tiger. He's absolutely great. I say that's who they go after, personally, anyway. All right. And now the last one that people are probably not going to be happy with me about. And yeah, that's number 10 for the Giants that they just got from the Cincinnati Bengals trading Dexter Lawrence to them. Now, again, the Giants need a lot of help. And pretty much at this point, the draft is completely open as far as who do you want to get. They need wide receiver help as far as another person on the other side of Neighbors. They need a linebacker. They need a defensive back. Maybe they take a chance on Jermon McCoy out of Tennessee. Now, he's got a little bit of an injury history, so maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they go after Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. To me, they need a wide receiver, and they need a wide receiver that he has a lot of upside, and he would be a multi-tool, and that's KC Concepcion out of Texas A&M. I watched him a lot at Texas A&M the last couple of years. I unfortunately watched him have an absolute heyday against my LSU Tigers 2 years in a row. I watched this dude pretty up close. I say KC Concepcion at 10. A lot of people might hate that. They may not be a fan. You probably even argue, well, Jordan Tyson is there. I like Jordan Tyson. He's been healthy for one season out of the 4 years he's been in college football. One, and it wasn't even last year. He has a lot of injury history. Now it's one of those, there's a lot of upside. He could potentially do a lot of great things, but do you want to take that risk in the NFL, especially when you're going to be getting hit harder? You're going to be getting hit more than you were in college, especially even going from the Big 12. Now you're going up against guys that they're older, they're bigger, they're going to have potentially, 5 to 10 years on you, and they're going to potentially have, 20 to 30 pounds of muscle on you. So you're going to be getting hit even harder than what you were in college. So to me, KC, he's been healthy, he's been solid, he's been productive. I say the Giants take him. And real quick before we end it, just to give some of the other names, because this is just my top 10, and these are some of the names that are still on the board theoretically if all of these picks go through. David Bailey out of Texas Tech at the edge. Ruben Bain. You've got Caleb Downs, Jordan Tyson, Spencer Fano, Jermon McCoy, the inside offensive lineman out of Penn State, whose name I'm not even going to try to enunciate because I'm going to absolutely butcher it. You've got Kenyon Sadiq, Kedrick Falk. You've got Peter Woods, Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon, Caleb Lamu. You got Omar Cooper Jr., Caden McDonald. You still have Caden Proctor. You have Akeem Mesidor out of Miami. You've got so many options to take for the rest of this draft. So this is absolutely super deep. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope everybody enjoyed. I know it's a little bit of a short episode. Like I said, Mike and I are going to do an episode Thursday that we're going to drop to go over his list, He's going to give me his takes, what he thinks, who he thinks is going to be really successful in the league. And it's going to be a good time. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope everybody enjoyed. Please check me out on all the social media inside the Hoosier Mind. Please check out Military Broadcast Radio. There's a ton of really great hosts on here, a ton of really great military veterans to give all sorts of great advice and great shows. Joy, thank you for being here. Best to you as well. And again, also check out Gunfighter Beard Co. If you want great smelling beard, great looking beard, he's got all the stuff to hook you up. But appreciate it. Everybody have a good night, and we will see you Thursday.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show,